Welcome back to From the Pages. And this time we step fully into Wrestling World, Fall 1982, Volume 23, Number 3. A quarterly that does not flirt with spectacle, but instead plants its feet firmly in hierarchy, legitimacy, and authority. Because from the moment the cover hits you, it is clear this magazine believes professional wrestling can be measured, ranked, argued, and ruled upon. The image of Ric Flair frozen mid-motion, muscles flexed, expression unbothered, promising that the Nature Boy is still king of the mat, while the surrounding cover lines bark declarations rather than teases. The top 50 wrestlers in the United States ranked and ordered. Nick Bockwinkel insisting he is number one. Dusty Rhodes chasing a nightmare quest. Cowboy Bob Orton stalking Bob Backlund's crown. And Tito Santana announcing he is done being the nice guy. All of it is wrapped in the unmistakable Lexington Library presentation. Editor-in-Chief John J. Plunkett and his staff positioning themselves not as cheerleaders but as chroniclers. And before a single feature begins, the ads quietly begin to hum beneath the surface. Dense blocks of type promising strength, conditioning, confidence, and opportunity, mail order, systems to remake the body or the wallet, reminders that wrestling magazines of this era were never just about wrestling, but about aspiration itself. Then the contents page lays out the issue like a battle plan, starting with rating the wrestlers. A top 50 compiled by the Mattingley Sports Bureau, followed by Flair's reign, Bockwinkel's supremacy, Dusty's pursuit, Orton's alliance, Santana's edge, and the royal family's noise, with regional reports promised from every corner of the wrestling world. As the pages turn, the advertising continues to pulse. Workout systems, self-improvement plans, miracle products, the quiet commerce of the early 80s pressing against the bold editorial voice. Then the rankings land with force as champions are planted at the top. Ric Flair reigning over the NWA, Bob Backlund steady atop the WWF, Nick Bockwinkel carrying the AWA banner, followed by a rigid hierarchy that wastes no time asserting dominance. Harley Race placed at number one, Dusty Rhodes close behind, Hulk Hogan rising fast, Andre the Giant looming, Jimmy Snuka soaring, and a deep field of names that reads like a who's who of the era, the presentation unflinching, the order declared rather than debated. Ric Flair's feature erupts across the page in pure bravado as the champion recounts his reign in terms of escape and superiority, boasting of his victory over Dusty Rhodes, flaunting wealth, diamond rings, limousines, mocking thrift and blue-collar pride, dismissing critics as jealous or outdated, insisting toughness and class are partners, not opposites, Flair sneering at comparisons to past champions while invoking their legacy, placing bounties, ridiculing challengers, and yet beneath the arrogance. The article allows the subtle suggestion that narrow escapes accumulate, that every close call chips away at invincibility, and between paragraphs the ads return, promising strength, money, shortcuts, mirroring Flair's philosophy of advantage. Nick Bockwinkel's feature cools the temperature completely, presenting the AWA champion as the thinking man's king. Calm, deliberate, unapologetic, discussing lineage, his alliance with Bobby Heenan, disputed championships, and his belief that rules are tools rather than obstacles. Bockwinkel framing psychology as the ultimate weapon, studying holds and opponents across territories, positioning himself as a man who wins with his mind as much as his body, calmly asserting he would face Flair or Backlund anywhere if politics allowed. The contrast sharpening the magazine's core argument that greatness wears many masks. Dusty Rhodes' American Dream narrative burns with emotional weight as the magazine frames his quest not as entitlement but as destiny earned through pain, betrayal, and perseverance. Dusty's path littered with the Funk's Harley Race heartbreak and redemption, the plumber's son portrayed as the embodiment of resilience and belief, chasing a title that represents validation rather than vanity, and as pages turn the ads continue to punctuate the story, offering everything from muscle-building courses to mail-order fortunes, reinforcing the era's obsession with self-creation, ambition, and reinvention that runs parallel to every championship chase. Cowboy Bob Orton's alliance with the Grand Wizard shifts the tone toward menace and strategy. Orton portrayed as dangerous alone and terrifying with guidance, the Wizard's presence, signaling manipulation and calculated pursuit of Bob Backlund's WWF Championship, the champion painted as steady but vulnerable, a marked man in a world where alliances change outcomes, followed by Tito Santana's transformation, as he openly confronts the perception that he has been too easy on opponents, vowing to harden his approach beginning with Nick Bockwinkel, a declaration that talent without edge is no longer enough in a ruthless hierarchy. When the royal family enters the narrative under King James Dillon, the magazine leans fully into factional arrogance, depicting a group that talks loudly, draws attention, and invites enemies, their bravado positioning them as lightning rods rather than rulers. Before widening the lens to the regional reports that ground everything in geography, Greg Napoli detailing the eastern scene, Len Matthews surveying the Midlands, George Napolitano reporting from the Caribbean, J. Ralph Hogan mapping the southern territories, Alan Bolte covering the western landscape, each reinforcing that wrestling in 1982 is vast, fragmented, competitive, and thriving across borders. By the time the final pages arrive, the ads still persist, small but relentless, promising power, money, and transformation, echoing the themes of dominance and ambition that run through every article. And Wrestling World Fall 1982 stands as a document of order imposed on chaos, a magazine that believes wrestling can be ranked, champions defined, and greatness argued with authority, capturing an era where Flair's confidence, Bockwinkel's intellect, Dusty's heart, Backlund's steadiness, and Santana's edge all collide within a single issue. And once that momentum fully sets in, once you realize how much history lives on these pages, that's when it feels natural to say it. If you're digging these deep dives straight from the original magazines, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment about which issue or era you want to explore next, because wrestling history doesn't just live in the ring. It lives right here on the page, and there is always another story waiting just beyond the turn. Even beyond the major features, the magazine's personality is reinforced in its quieter spaces, the masthead reminding readers that Wrestling World is produced quarterly, not rushed, designed to be studied rather than skimmed, the editorial offices rooted in New York City, the advertising representatives listed with precision, the legal language asserting copyright under multiple conventions, all of it reinforcing the sense that this is not disposable reading but a permanent record. And between these formal declarations, the ads creep back in again, promising courses, equipment, and systems that claim to deliver strength, confidence, and control, echoing the same promises made by the champions themselves. That power can be learned, ordered, and mastered if you follow the right program. The regional reports deserve their own gravity because they function as proof that wrestling in 1982 is not a single story but dozens unfolding at once. Greg Napoli's Eastern report grounding the reader in territory realities. Cards changing nightly, champions defending in packed buildings, Len Matthews' Midlands report capturing the heartbeat of promotions often ignored by national hype, George Napolitano's Caribbean report offering a rare window into scenes many fans only hear rumors about, J. Ralph Hogan's Southern report steeped in tradition, heat, and legacy, and Alan Bolte's Western report mapping a landscape of experimentation and expansion, each section reinforcing the idea that wrestling's power lies in its sprawl. Threaded through these reports are photographs and captions that do just as much work as the text. Bodies caught mid-motion, sweat and strain frozen in black and white, champions posed with belts, challengers glowering, the visual language reinforcing hierarchy and threat, and just as often those photos are bordered by advertisements, small but insistent bodybuilding plans, self-help courses, mail-order opportunities that promise transformation, the magazine quietly suggesting that the same discipline that builds wrestlers can build readers too, that fandom and self-improvement are part of the same ecosystem, and that belief more than spectacle is the currency being sold. What separates this issue from simple promotion is its insistence on argument. Flair versus Bockwinkel, not as personalities but as philosophies, Dusty versus circumstance as a test of endurance, Backlund versus manipulation as a study in stability, Santana versus perception as a battle for identity, and even the rankings themselves framed less as entertainment and more as provocation, daring the reader to disagree, to debate, to take sides, and to keep buying the next issue to see whether order has shifted. The magazine understanding that wrestling thrives not just on winners and losers, but on conversations sustained over months and years. By the time Wrestling World Fall 1982 finally closes, the cumulative effect is undeniable. This is a publication trying to impose structure on a chaotic industry, to turn blood, sweat, ego, and bravado into something measurable and permanent, a magazine that believes wrestling history deserves to be archived with the same seriousness as any other sport. And when you step back and look at it as a whole, Flair's confidence, Bockwinkel's intellect, Dusty's heart, Backlund's steadiness, Santana's edge, and the roar of regional scenes all coexist on equal footing, preserved not as nostalgia but as living argument. And that is where From the Pages earns its purpose, not just retelling what happened, but reminding you why these magazines mattered, why fans waited for them, argued over them, clipped photos from them, memorized rankings, filled out mail order forms, and felt connected to a world much larger than their local arena. And once that realization fully settles in, once the rhythm of the era takes hold, that's when it feels natural to lean in and say it again. If you're enjoying these deep dives straight from the original print, stay with it, because there are decades of stories still waiting to be pulled back into the light, one page at a time.